House Ways and Means Committee Chairperson Joey Salceda says tricycle drivers number more than 4 million nationwide. In Parañaque City alone, Mayor Edwin Olivares says the local government counts around 14,000 tricycle units.
Kailangan isama naman yung sektor ng tatlong gulong kasi affected na sila eh. Hindi lang itong ating pagtaas ng gasolina, pati pa nung pandemic, ngayon lang ako nakaka-recover ng konti dahil nga alert level 1 ng Metro Manila, tas ito na naman yung ating increase ng ating gasoline natin.
So how will government fund the subsidy for tricycle drivers? Salceda says the president should declare a state of economic crisis to dip into the calamity fund for such purpose. Even presidential candidate Senator Ping Lacson is calling on the president to convene a special session of Congress to pass measures that will help people cope with costly fuel.
Pwede pa rin nila increase. Pero dapat talaga i-cover lahat kasi lahat yan may bituka eh. Lahat may pamilya. Bakit tayo maglilimit lamang doon sa ipopera natin yung TODA? Gutom din yun.
Tricycle drivers like Ruben hope help will come soon as the crisis unfolds and the future remains uncertain. George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
Some oil companies are offering a reprieve from the weekly price hikes. Petrogas is slashing fuel prices until Sunday. It's cutting the cost of gasoline by 5 pesos and 85 centavos per liter and diesel by 3 pesos and 60 centavos per liter. Petrogas says this is to minimize the impact of price hikes on motorists. And this one's only valid until today. Petron is giving its value card and super driver card holders a chance to earn points that would translate to a 2 peso per liter discount on all fuel products. Well, after a series of fuel price hikes, expect electricity charges to follow this month. Energy distributor will impose a 6 centavo per kilowatt hour increase, which is equivalent to a 13 pesos add-on for those consuming 200 kilowatt hours per month. Meralco explains suppliers are charging more for power generation. This is the first power rate hike after 2 consecutive reductions this year. Meralco warns of more power rate movements in the coming months. The world market expects oil prices to remain expensive as tension between Ukraine and Russia escalate.
Dinifer na 500 million in terms of the generation cost, that's 18 centavos. So yan ay i-recover over 3 months starting April. Plus yung additional distribution through up na refund na in-implement namin based sa order ng ERC. So yung mga factors na yan nakatulong para to keep rates somehow manageable, no?
So that this will be reflected in the May generation charge. So if there is any effect of the increase in world crude oil prices, we will feel it in the Malampaya prices starting May generation charge.
It has not seen any change. Nation Drive COVID-19 shots are available.
Wants to revisit COMELEC's new rule cases. Second, he
abide definitely with the Supreme Court restraining order. Personally po, ang sabi ko, private property should be outside the regulation of the Commission on Election.
Garcia also says he can assist a group of teachers who are calling for tax-free benefits and honoraria on their pay as poll workers come May.
1,000 pesos ang itinaas, pero yung ibabawas naman sa tax namin ay 1,400. Nasaan ang lohika nun?
The 7-member unbank has only 8 weeks left to deliver these reforms, along with final preparations for the May 9 polls. Melissa Lonan, Philippines.
An update on the presidential candidates 60 days before the Filipino votes. Senator Ping Lacson is among those being considered for endorsement by the ruling party PDP Laban. Now, that revelation coming from Parañaque Mayor Edwin Olivares, the Cusi faction's vice president for NCR. The faction had endorsed the vice presidential bid of Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte.
In terms of qualification, wala po tayong masasabi kay Senator Ping. Mula nung nasa PNP siya, ilang term ng bilang senator natin. Ang problem lang po namin, I belong to the party ng PDP. So, i-convene namin po before the 25 ulit yung National Executive Committee through consultation po namin sa aming mga chapter PDP natin. Tapos magkakaroon po ng official statement. At andun po si Senator Ping, isa po sa tinitingnan po for endorsement for president ng PDP.
The camp of Vice President Leni Robredo hits back at what it says is red tagging of her campaign rallies. Robredo's spokesperson Barry Gutierrez says red tagging masked as concern is, quote, a new low. The statement comes as Lacson insists Robredo's campaign rally in Cavite was infiltrated by communists based on the information he got from a supposed rebel surrenderee. Lacson says his team is also verifying whether communists were also present in Robredo's sorties in Iloilo and Bulacan. Labor leader Leody de Guzman renewing his calls to scrap the oil deregulation law to ease the burden of the transportation sector and ordinary workers amid the oil price hike.
Pangalagaan ng gobyerno, proteksyonan ng gobyerno, hindi yung mga korporasyon ng langis, kundi yung mamamayan. At ang isang paraan, makialam siya, huwag niya ipaubaya sa negosyo ng mga korporasyon ng langis yung pagtatakda ng presyo.
Senator Manny Pacquiao warns scammers who use his name for money-making schemes could face jail time. He's looking into offering a cash reward for information that could lead to their arrests. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno in favor of postponing the barangay elections this December, saying the money is better used to provide aid to people amid the oil price hike. Meanwhile, his running mate Willie Ong proposing an interagency task force to handle the effects of a possible nuclear war amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Bino-volunteer ko na sarili ko. Ako na lang mag-head. Diba? Kalimutan na natin itong eleksyon. Ako muna head. Hindi na tayo makahintay ng July eh. Bibili na natin yung potassium iodide. Diba? Ire-ready na natin yung mga tao. Tuturuan na natin kung anong gagawin.
The tandem of Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte says church leaders are embracing the Uniteam's call for unity. The statement comes after Marcos and Duterte met with Bishop Leopoldo Haushan of the Diocese of Bangued in Abra and Bishop Ted Malangen of the Jesus Christ the Deliverer Church in Bulacan. The Marcos camp this week urged the Catholic clergy to stop meddling in politics. In an interview with talk show host Boy Abunda, Marcos's wife reveals the former senator decided to run for the presidency while watching a Marvel movie.
6 months ago, he wasn't yet sure what to do. We had no party, And then one day we're watching Ant-Man in the room. And then he looked, because we love Marvel movies. And then he looked at me and he goes, okay, we're going to do this. He told me. I said, do what? Run for the presidency.
Ant-Man tells the story of a former convicted thief who turned into an Avenger with the ability to shrink to a tiny size. More stories ahead. It's a big night for BTS ARMYs. The first of 3 Permission to Dance on Stage Seoul concerts has kicked off. And another spin-off show is
the 105 maternity leave days law. That languished, and there were so many opponents when I was a member of the House.
Right.
Ang daming kumukontra, businessmen ayaw. Napapasa ko yun kasi kinausap ko.
Businessmen ayaw dahil nga, and thank you pala for your response to that President Duterte question, and we've gotten that out of the way.
Ayaw nila kasi, dagdag daw sa sa babayaran nila kung may maternity leave.
Umaaray nga sila sa 1.5 buwang maternity leave.
Libong kababaihan, taon-taon.
Yes, yes. I remember coming back.
Baby pa siya, di ba? But the difference, by the way, may 30 days additional.
You're going to be senator for the next 3 years. What else would you like to do?
And that brings about many opportunities for them to fulfill their dual role as mother or caregiver. Baka hindi mother, pero nag-aalaga ng lola, nag-aalaga ng may sakit. So their dual role as caregiver and breadwinner in the family. So work from home is a result of the pandemic. Is something that came out of the pandemic, which is feasible, and we must support it in every way we can. It has also revealed our gaps because access to healthcare and access to childcare has become worse during the pandemic.
Right.
So nakita natin, and it gives us more reason to support it. At another time, I can elaborate on that, but
yes.
I think that's the most important things we can do. And then fulfill the sustainable development goals, because believe it or not, something like sustainable transportation. Yung 4 na oras mo nasa traffic ka, kung in 30 minutes nakauwi ka, edi mas may time ka maging nanay, mas may time ka sa anak mo, diba? So sustainable transportation, sustainable cities affect women and how they perform their jobs.
Senator Pia Cayetano, thank you very much for your time tonight. We'll
Thank
be
you very
back
much.
after a quick break. Stay tuned. This is Politics as Usual. Welcome back to Politics as Usual. On to local politics. Here in Metro Manila, a survey showing re-electionist mayors and their relatives leading by a wide gap against their opponents. Let's talk to Lobby and Campaign Group Publicus Asia's David Yap for more. David, thank you very much for being with us tonight. So what explains this? And I wanted to take a wild guess and then you can correct me if I'm wrong. Number one, it's a midterm election. Number two, most are gunning for a second term. Or taking over from their relative, close relative. And number three, most if not all of them, Metro Manila LGUs did very well in their pandemic response.
Yes, correct. So just as an introduction for your viewers, our survey numbers suggest that incumbent mayors as well as the relatives of incumbent mayors, as you mentioned, only gunning for his second term. And people thus far appear to be receptive of the reforms, the programs, the projects that he has put forward for the people of Pasig. And I think that is a huge reason behind his, in this case, survey topping numbers.
I mentioned already West Gatchalian and Abi Binay, so Valenzuela and Makati. Of course, the names are very familiar, so Gatchalian, Binay, and I know you've done a lot of studies about political dynasties, and it can come out of our ears already. Political dynasties, year in, year out, election year in, election year out, pre-Marcos, post-Marcos. Ano pa bang, what else is new? So talk to us about that dynamic. The dynasties, and yet these people are leading in these surveys?
That's an excellent question, Pia. I would just like to preface my response by saying that it is actually instructive to point out that a strong argument can be made that dynasties proliferated after considering imposing laws that would prohibit political dynasties, just as an important aside. But going back to the question, when talking about dynasties, it is important to be wary of fundamental attribution error and avoid underestimating external and situational factors that are at play. While it is true that many of the leading candidates can be viewed to belong to political dynasties, insisting that they are leading only because of their last names reduces an unambiguously multivariate problem into a univariate problem. But simply, there are other considerations, which of course includes things such as performance, charisma, and the alternatives on offer.
Yeah, well, performance, yes, they did perform well, right?
Yes.
Rex Gatchalian
I
or
would
the
say-
brother Abi as mayor of, yeah.
So I think it's also important to give voters more credit for their choices. I am inclined to believe that it is kind of unfair to insist that they only look at the last names of candidates. I, for one, would like to think that they put in a lot of effort in coming up with their election-related decisions.
And rightly so. Okay, sa vice mayoral race naman, you're saying that medyo mas close ito. What would explain that? Oh, sorry. Before we go to the vice mayor, I just wanted to ask one question about Marikina. So you have Marcy Teodoro running for re-election, 62%. Medyo comfortable na rin. But he's running against a former Marikina politician, very well known, who himself did well as mayor of Marikina, Bayani Fernando. So, how do we understand that?
Since I'm not particularly from Marikina, I would chalk it up to recency bias. While it is true that Bayani Fernando was a famous politician during his time, and particularly in Marikina, where he instituted a lot of reforms, you're looking at the incumbency advantage yet again, combined with the recency bias. So people are more familiar, and when you consider, again, when we go back to the pandemic, you consider who was there during the pandemic. I would make the argument that it was Mayor Teodoro, who the people were seeing constantly.
What else would you like to share with us, David, when it comes, para ang takeaway natin dito on this study by Publicus Asia on the Metro Manila mayor's mayoral and vice mayoral candidates?
Well, for starters, there is still a lot of time. The campaign period for local officials is still a couple of weeks away, around 2.5 weeks away.
March
So
10th.
there are still a lot of changes that could happen, and it's still anyone's game. But of course, when you're looking at these numbers, you're going to give the advantage, at least at this point in time, to incumbents.
Still anyone's game, even in the case of Pasig with 92% for Vico. Parang wow, how do you overturn that?
Well, fortunately, it is. Well, in my case, fortunately, it's not my problem. But best of luck to all the candidates.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, David Yap of Publicus Asia. Thank you for being with us tonight on this, your first guesting on the show. I hope to see you back here again. Salamat.
All right.
More from our guests when we return. This is Politics as Usual. We're in our final stretch. This is Politics as Usual. On to national politics. Let's talk about the latest presidential and vice presidential surveys. And, the whole issue of surveys with UP School of Statistics Associate Professor Francisco Kiko de los Reyes. Professor Kiko, thank you very much. Of course, our takeoff point is that statement of the UP School of Statistics about surveys. No, but let's not talk about that. But let's go, not just that, but offshoots of that. So let's go straight to this question. No? We talk about credibility, which, and for me, the question is, and I want you to answer this as straight and as direct as possible because it will be helpful to our viewers, which survey firms are credible. And I am going to be reading from a list prepared by Dr. Toots Albert, and it is in his PowerPoint presentation. So, of course, when I say the name of the survey firm, you just say yes or no. Okay, so Pulse Asia.
For me, yes.
Social Weather Stations, SWS.
For me, yes.
Ibon.
I have not seen their survey, sorry.
Okay. But considered a survey for Okta Research.
Is that the Twitter survey? If it's the
Okta?
Twitter survey,
Okta?
they did a Twitter survey eh. So, meron akong reservation with Twitter surveys.
Okay, but if kung hindi Twitter, okay lang. Basta,
Yes, if it's done in
this
a
is the
random
Okta Research
sampling.
Group eh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If they did it in the random sampling way, yes.
Okay, and we're gonna bring up the graphics para makita ng viewers natin yung mga pangalan. I'm just addressing our control. There we go. DigiVoice.
I haven't seen that, sorry.
Oh, okay. Publicus Asia. I was just speaking to David Yap of Publicus Asia. We were talking about the NCR mayor and mayoralty and vice mayoralty races.
I have reservations.
Boses Pilipinas.
I haven't heard it.
The Strafford.
I have not heard about it.
MBC Manila Broadcasting Company. They do surveys.
I'm not familiar
Pass.
with them.
Pass. RMN. Pass.
What's that?
RMN.
It's if it's random sampling, that's the point. The statement is actually not a witch hunt. Let me clarify.
Yes,
it's not a witch hunt. But we want to say is dapat nirespeto yung mga prinsipyo ng sampling, ng random sampling, random selection, and that's it. So if these companies are openly saying that they're doing that, then that's fine, right?
Okay.
But if they don't share,
yes, we're going to get to design and
that's
mythology.
where-
Yes, we'll get to design and mythology in just a bit, but we don't have much time. So very quickly, and then Lilo. They've been doing surveys, similar results to Pulse and SWS. You wanna pass
Honestly,
on
I haven't encountered
Okay.
the results.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, now the ones you said, for example, Pulse, Asia, and SWS. So obviously they're the ones with the track record, meaning that they've correctly predicted
Yes,
the results,
true.
the outcome of elections, right? Now
Yes.
the list obviously excludes surveys on social media, Facebook, kanina, nabanggit nyo na, Twitter, Viber surveys, even Kalya surveys. And precisely because what you're saying here is wala kasing design and methodology yan, right?
Correct.
Okay. Pero may isang sinabi a few weeks ago, I was interviewing Coco Pimentel on this show, and we were talking about the survey frontrunner, BBM, and he was saying, pandemic surveys kasi, so merong mga parang questionable. Is that something that we should keep in our minds? No, because
Totoo yun,
Pulse,
kasi,
SIS,
ang laki ng problema natin with penetrating the barangays, So parang baseline nga, parang benchmark nga namin, 30% ng mga communities hindi talaga nape-penetrate nung surveys na ito. So that itself constrains the random sampling procedure. So that particular time, no, it's takot yung mga taong humarap sa kapwa niya tao kasi dapat face to face yan eh. So it's really very difficult to do that. And sino lang yung magpapa-interview. Yung malakas lang yung loob. So, posibleng merong correlation yung kanyang mga sagot doon sa lakas ng loob niya, right?
Okay.
So, that itself is another explanation bakit.
So we can expect that as things normalize, quote-unquote, then perhaps we can get a better picture that the surveys will give us, right? Now,
I'm positive about it. Yeah, I'm positive about it.
All
yes, as things normalize, people will tend to be accommodating of surveys, and the companies themselves can now have this truthful, adherence to the methodology, to the parang may plano kasi yan eh. So dapat nasusunod nila yan eh. Even the intervals that they have to respect, they have to do that. A properly trained person, an interviewer will do that.
Okay. I'm not sure if this is a fair question for you, but I hope you can still address this. No? So design and methodology pinag-uusapan. Why only 1,200 and not bigger? Because bigger is not better ba? Tapos merong paces, di ba? Then you turn left or right, you know, that's and then demeanor of the interviewer. That's so important, right?
Correct. Yes. So 1,200 is actually mathematically good, but it has to be interpreted at a certain layer. So if the layer is national, di ba? Tapos halimbawa mga stand-alone na mga percentages sa socio-economic class or broad region, okay na yon. But you cannot use the 1,200 to have a cross-classification. Di ba yung parang kino-cross-classify mo siya like lalaki from NCR, hindi na pwedeng magawa yun pag 1,200. So the bigger the sample, the more understanding you get from the sample itself. So bigger is not necessarily better, but in the understanding of the layers, mas maganda yung mas malaki ng kaunti. Pero hindi naman talaga super laki yan. No? So yung 1,200, okay na 2,400 na or 3,000 na. Later on, you will see surveys na 6,000. Diba? Okay na yon. Hindi talaga proportionate yun talaga dapat dun sa 60 plus million voters natin.
Okay, and a final question to you and a final brief answer from you because like you've always said, a survey is a snapshot in time. It is a guide. You also use the word liwanag, no? A lighthouse to guide the campaign. Yes. But also, we are told not to vote according to surveys. Professor Kiko?
Yes. Surveys only signify what is the current, what is the now. Your vote must be dependent on what you believe, what you research, no? Ayoko ngang sabihin palagi, pero sasabihin ko na rin, irespeto mo yung sarili mo. Pumili ka dahil sa yun ang decision mo. Ang pangit pumili na nag-decide yung iba para sa iyo, no? So don't let yourself be swayed by what the surveys say. Decide on your own and cast that vote. Right? I'll say that from your own self, no? Respect yourself, cast that vote, decide for yourself.
All right, Professor Kiko de los Reyes of the UP School of Statistics, thank you very much for being with us tonight. We've been told before, don't talk politics at the dinner table or the family reunion or in Viber groups and risk digital warfare, but we can talk about it